Hello, humanity, America and Saudi Arabia, and Christine Amanpour, and Mr. Turkey. Weathersfield police have roles with wire crime action methods and mail crimes. There are people with the name Leahy. A whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital attached me to fake conversations with themselves. Change. They try to make fake exceptions. They are using and having used exception nature before the World Trade Center attack with Weathersfield Police Departments through time about fake conversations with me with themselves. And through the news, they pretended it. And what they did was put me to fake ties, fake natures of ties, and fake sequence relationships to people increasingly involved with themselves, with timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and now with terrorists. Weathersfield police are refusing to identify themselves legitimately, forging names, switching names, putting arrays of fake falsified police reports into databases for the same arrest, and making confessions known. They have roles with all sides of religious spots and with differences racketeering. There's a Judge Smith, there's a Judge Killian speaking fake things and delusions into records. They have drugs and medicines, crimes, acts, and methods where they just fake transcripts which record it and they change everything and their delusions raw. Now these are people involved with torture in the World Trade Center attack, where that our countries A through Z, the way the breaching method employed them to have rules of torture methods clearer than day, like the wire crime action methods, refusing to identify themselves. They have Judge Napolitano's sense and sensibilities and other Marines. I don't even know Judge Napolitano, but there's a Demoro who looks just like one of the kids that he's doing business with, who's involved increasingly with people at each campus I went to who have roles of predicate acts and predicate act methods. And they're changing and faking what's actually recorded, not legitimately. See, where they have legitimate means and needs to do that increasingly at my country, suits and ties, counters, exceptions. You guys have the suburbs that were designed before America's founders were born. America, Saudi Arabia. We are in a semi-ancient trap. All right. In other words, I'm not yelling at you guys. I'm trying to do it because they know they did. The FBI is involved with them. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. He knows that it's recorded various ways, that there's people with the name Scalora involved with them with predicate acts inter-cities and intra-cities and interstates and intrastates and international and intranational. Per even worse, we can discern. Because, too, this is relative where and relevant / hyper relevant, right where the subject of a human fact treatment nature breaching method in our founders' communications is replaced or pace. They have it replaced right through our schools, sickly distinctly too, A through Z, and that is being and having been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. This breaching method knew that only an individual, some ways, could only defend the order of the finite or the finite. In other words, group think, see group think. So WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, the recorded confess demonstrated confirms involved with predicate acts with I don't know her at all. What's her name? A whole bunch of people from the Institute of Living. And next to it, the houses and businesses and people tied to those names are increasingly involved. Time collusions with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, and child abusers, leaders of kids years apart, first forced, who have the kids and family members of judges and prosecutors involved with all kinds of drugs and medicines, crimes, putting fake shit stuff. They do all kinds of tricks too. Like, in other words, with the people that plant evidences on people's house before they were when they were yelling, when people needed to raise their voice on a mass scale for all kinds of cover-ups of criminally foreign influence uses of all natures of investigators, of perspective, of syntax. There are qualities of fact. You guys have roles clearer than day. This is also relative to how you get away with it. You just jump and fake change conversations clearer than a day, blaming other things, others, ourselves, things that our founders and that nature itself, and that the religious messengers all communicated with their communication to contain demonstrations. There was a human fact, human nature breaching method involved. In other words, clearer than day. It's not by accident. Only broken grammar school logic and people using their own physical difference, white or black or what they call it, to make the stupid broken grammar school logic, whatever, to keep black people's whites of eyes from the subject and the breaching method. But the subject being what nature communicates still. Nature shows us we have the same color eyes, different color eyes. And the law names yet have failed. In other words, we are a species body of individual bodies with all group differences being generated by that which is functional, being hyper invisible but still discernible. That's why we are supposed to. It's not important if we agree on the name of that as a scientific value or not. But there are exceptions, like with schools, because now you have to teach about all that we can. You have to list and look at simultaneously and study simultaneously, understand simultaneously. All the revelations that come. It's not just that we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time, and the identity of all space/existence. We don't have to agree to call it Allah. We have to be honest about it. Otherwise, it's a broken, I have free speech. See, the breaching method shows the identity of the law. They need to hide behind people like that and everyone blaming other things, others themselves, and per uses of names as premises. And we're going to examine Boolean logic. There are proofs that they did do preservation of part of understanding the sciences, which is understanding the identity of all space/existence, that a distinct identity of hyper simultaneous nature that is showing us we are not those species bodies, but we are distinctly. We are distinctly, but also non-distinctly, and simultaneously, but also / hyper simultaneously. This is being and has been generated by what neither they nor we invented, and we could discern this to an extent. But wherever we could discern that which is true always to an extent, it comes with its complete identity relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that. So there are people on Valley Crest Street in Wethersfield, Connecticut, and there's a Kerr family on Morgan Circle, but they put sequence shifts in databases with some judges and prosecutors, and their educators. It has something to do with the people involved with the World Trade Center attack, and Officer Jerry Miller on Facebook with a whole bunch of people with the Facebook page of Wethersfield Police with the name Schumack, and Mike Violet, involved with the Joshua Julian, and some KKK Confederate flag theme intelligence roles interstates with foreign and domestic military involved with the World Trade Center through roles with other acts and natures of predicate acts, methods of predicate acts. On my street, also with the O'Brien family, also with a whole bunch of different police departments with the same house. /S. I don't even know where they are now, but they're still involved with wire crime, still with the name Kalola by the Wethersfield Police brought in. They didn't put the whole name. They're sequence shifting too. And they have predicate acts with an officer who confessed the name Scalora involved with them with federal evidence as crimes, and officers refusing to identify themselves, and involved with all kinds of predicate acts methods, including wire and mail crime methods, digital crimes. They hid what was actually digitally recorded and confirmed. And like untimely death rolls at Trinity College brought up the principal child abuser to me. Some of the parents had roles, and they're hiding behind their roles with intelligence and the federal too. A whole bunch of people tied to and as former director of the FBI Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organization Act. He has roles with people with the name Scalora at the Ninth Circuit Court with sequence shifting in the Ninth Circuit. Names on both sides of that case involved at Central Connecticut State University with a whole in Connecticut, involved with the World Trade Center attack in Manhattan, and with people with Washington through time. There was a 1989 Reader's Digest article by um, Eugene Meffin regarding, for example, Clinton people that were involved and are involved increasingly with Trinity College, with a Joshua Stryker is involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and federal evidences, crimes, and predicate acts, with a Dean Alford, influenced to it by an officer that uses the name Darth Vader, and by some probation officers and one associate and people involved with Mike Oliver from boxing. When Greg Kyler was reported to have been shot, others had recorded predicate acts rules against him, with people in Hartford, next to Trinity College, in Central Connecticut State University, that recorded that and confessed, demonstrated, confirmed the intelligence between those cities are connected. And those names have collusions with people from my area when I was growing up, who are increasingly hiding life progressions intercities. And they have these methods where they pretend they change. They use the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie. This is also weird on how they leak. They leak. And then they put fake conversations with people in databases, and then other change and fake things on digital. Masked, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought readings of the statutes, and predicate acts with facts roles. Needs and natures actually are already shown that they needed to hide that formally in other locations. Forgiveness is because it's for way worse, and time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. I never had a class with a Mark Violet or his brother Mike Violet or a Kovinskis. They have something to do with people all along Route 175, further involved with leaders of the kids intercities, and a medical effect. A whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital have predicate acts of all kinds of different natures, and scams with the lawyers there too, and the security and again the buildings next to it. So, and these are people involved with the World Trade Center predicate acts and with WFSB to cover it up. The same names are involved next to the WFSB in Rocky Hill. There are same names that are involved next to Fox Connecticut News in Hartford. The same name, a whole bunch of people as their roles with a whole bunch of different countries. Like, for example, in the subjects in the live stream section of the YouTube channel of Judging Freedom, Judge Napolitano's Judging Freedom, who was a former employee of Fox News. This is before and after he was with Fox News, and the difference was his recorded involved with their conscious uses of it, and they don't even understand the extent of it, because these are people since we're kids, where there are functions by anyone sensing communications of what nature communicates properly, let alone if nature communicates properly, and our founders, because our founders communicated to us with their subject and what nature has simultaneously, that there was a human fact treatment nature breaching method that had been entrenched and sustained against Native Americans, and it had already been sustained and entrenched against the people it was doing it against Native Americans through. And it was already Native Americans against Native Americans, because everyone's fact treatment nature was forced to collusions or to be sensed through everyone else. While all counters to that were collusions without anyone knowing. This breaching method came from semi-ancient times, took complete possession / hyper-possession over all natures of industries and differences of sciences, of the names of the people of the sciences from off those locations, but then hyper additionally through apparent, even when real, motivations. for when we see discern. When these subject treatments, leaving out exceptions and exception in nature, being and valuing exceptions and exception in nature tactically ulterior from how nature does. We have been systems tactically ulterior that from that hyper native pure. That's why and how it shows, we don't have to be Native Americans. We could decipher here with president / chief and with nature itself anyway. There are three natures of our founders, and they grew from the three natures of Native Americans that nature itself forced to be. When for example, there are proofs that it was so long having been sustained against every single body of the human species everywhere we were. It is like, for example, when they say, for all we know, it was in 1492 when they first found America. We didn't know about it before then. It is more probable and is more scientific to convict scientifically because there were criminally foreign influence databases. There are proofs that they took down mountains in Russia and in America, as one's consciously with this color game now that set it up way back then. It re-employed all the communications of humanity and sustained, forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded roles to it. And all exceptions, it didn't matter because from off all campuses and their exceptions, it sustained roles with this. That breaching method was not debatable. In other words, the only way there's things that are not debatable, and it's gotten away with how they're debatable, how they appear to be debatable, right where we can observe criminally self-valued, criminally foreign influence, fact, nature, quality, aspects in nature, as criminal and ceaseless nature that would not be. Had we had free speech, had we not had people making examples of how they want free speech, like a free press, but, and then say, we'll leave it to the courts, pretending they don't realize courts could have and had individually grouped it together, the branch of the government, at the same time, the difference of that or the intelligence tied to them. And that never stopped being criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. All kinds of drugs and medicines, crime methods, and predicate acts methods, mail crime acts methods, wire crime acts methods, legal scams at and next to Harper Hospital, with just a few dozen people involved, with more scams already having been than there are streets and houses on them in Hartford, Connecticut. Vaccines, in other words. So please, I tried to communicate with Saudi Arabia on. I understand that they didn't communicate, but I also knew that in the backgrounds they had to hide more live progression. They had to use syntax, use names, and use nature to appreciate it in ways they couldn't. So they did it while having been used remotely. We could observe this. WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, is involved with all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slanders, and natures of organized crimes. But it is manifest this way because of how this is manifest. That again, those, like for example, those crazy laws that were entrenched in northern colonies and southern colonies against everyone, rather than observing how they were sickly distinctly against everyone, but also sickly non-distinctly. And how they were functions by non-distinctly against everyone, but everyone, rather than value that the way nature was showing them to, they were valuing it the way the breaching method was. And there were roles with that. Otherwise, that body was being sensed. And as styles, pretending not to realize, they valued and are valuing timed collusion with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists. And really what causes the real bad kids as good kids in New York City and adults that they put in jail, and they say, these are real bad people. They had collusion /S at all locations /S. I saw a video somewhere, and the class started off, and the lady says hello, and the kid goes, F you, a little kid. You know, I can't even do it. But in other words, it's just shock and awe. Like, for example, you this breaching method stuff, you should know things like that would happen by now, and have like in other words, everyone wants to. In other words, you guys don't know how to speak for freedom. These kids too, they know they're right. Even when the little kid says that in New York City, clearer than day. Predicate acts with facts methods are concentrated upon all locations slash s sickly distinctly too, and worst many ways at New York City. And all exceptions in exception nature, they want to need to counter it. Like people with wealth want to help, but they can't do it and defend how they think and want to defend, use their difference at the same time. That's why how they can't deal with the crime in New York City. It's not just this thing, it's going to be the next thing. There's a complete possession over the use slash S of the names of America and Saudi Arabia. The lawyers, they're as worse than criminal incompetence with the lawyers of the victims of the 9/11 attack, trying to hold them as a group to measure and maintain. And sense for the people on our side, like former director of the FBI and the other agencies and military, foreign and domestic. Criminally foreign influence too, tactically delusions wrought readings of reality and of the books and of the religious books, specifically regarding the words. It says in the beginning of the Old Testament, only defend right here, where the names of the people of the sciences will come together in the part before it. They want to keep fights between people and have psychos legitimately reading these books out of using their knowledge of good and evil as styles of debate. They need to value criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw collusion slash S, for example, making no one know about that first part and using the difference of them as the people attacking the religions or as the people with the passions for defending them. These are collusions with a difference racket and with the exceptions. This breaching method showed that people with exceptions had to be actors at different locations too, and to value that being and having been with other people. No, there are styles of roles with that breaching method that measures and maintains through our own. When I say our own, I'm saying the human species body of individual bodies. Collusion slash S, self-value with its use of difference slash S. Tactical ulterior from how nature uses it. And nature demonstrates this a whole bunch of ways at the same time. Because it's through because and we are shown this is how like the parts of our body can discern our complete body, our complete identity. It is not them or at them, but it is anyway. And at the same time, our complete identity is not the complete identity of all space slash existence, but it is inseparable from all parts of space slash existence. Even if something is made up, its volume science is distinctly, non-distinctly, simultaneously slash hyper simultaneously, 3/5 ways grouped, and demonstration of the difference of it, and the difference of that shows its identity relationship to itself and the value of that. With everything, even the smallest detail of everything is more than one thing. Where and how one thing is making hyper additional nature. It's making more of itself the identity of all space slash existence through temporary slash lasting space nature. And this was what English and other ancient languages were revealed to be taught to teach together. So please, Whiting Forensics also has a Joshua Julian, and they have someone with the name O'Neill who's involved with West Hartford campuses. Also one next to a Burgess house. Eric Burgess is one of the ones involved with the fire department there too, and with a park across the street involved with a John Dennis and a Joe Dennis who recorded past demonstrated confirmed when they were kids, and then as an adults they tried to make fake exceptions of knowing me because they have roles with federal evidences crimes with the intelligence communities, foreign and domestic, and with a former mayor involved with medical and sexual offenders of kids, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and further child abusers, leaders of kids, with ones that were years apart, but they were also timed use slash S of them. Also, the intelligence hid where they have means to discern this. It is clearer than day that they are types of jobs in dealings with subject treatments and natures of organized crime where they left out and self value being and haven't been left out, the difference of them being the worst ones or them, because they have rules of predicate acts with facts methods against every single person and our founders, black peoples. So please, Miss Amanpour, and please, Mr. Turkey, get the Weathersfield Police on paper, one name and sequence. 3 times at Hartford Hospital, they forced me for a mental evaluation. 2 times they totally made things up to hide what I caught them doing the first time when I forced people to call the police without telling them why and demanded it when they didn't want to do it. I would be violently, verbally, and until they did it. And they did it. And I caught them clearer than day with a Kevin Dillon, a whole bunch of people tied to them. Has something to do with Harvard Hospital's roles with the community center of Weathersfield too. And they're leaking a lot. They're leaking. What's this? There's a former police chief Cintron and his family. He has roles. He's communicating with me through others in the media. He's putting lies. So he's also lying about what he's communicating. He's got a Mazzucato bakery and a Jonathan Mayano and people with the name Spada involved with the Ray Kalal with identity theft, fraud, slanders, falsified police reports, wire crimes, and his father with the same name. I don't even know his sister's name. She got something to do with Newington police families. I heard of the name, like that's with Phelps. I don't know him. I don't even know what he looks like. These are people involved with sequence shifting, and there's also a D. Simone family involved with them with wire crimes, intercities, falsified police reports, stacking, rules with prosecutors and judges. There's a Brian Silver with the New Britain Superior Court with all kinds of predicate acts. People recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed him involved with it. And people and former Judge Smith, and they say a detective, a prosecutor named Salisbury, and then this is through time. These are people in New Britain, Central Connecticut State University Intelligence has been recording, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with predicate acts with people at each campus I went to. And these are campuses that aren't even Central Connecticut State University. And increasingly there are foreign names and overt criminal enterprises involved at the same time. And the news. Joshua Julian recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed he has roles with news years ago involved with organized crime, conversations with ad collusions, with people through time involved with pretending to be against that because they're also, they're not legitimately intelligence. Where how accounts where they have roles with predicate acts with child offenders, uses of rights to lie where they don't have the right to lie, uses of, context where they know that if they say things and do things, then they're going to have to have it hid later. They're going to have to hide that and change what they actually know when they're communicating with other people. Investigators are being and haven't been used remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions raw on Covington Street with all kinds of crime methods. They record people saying one thing after they communicated other, because these are also people roles with self-value with as styles and leads of logic of nature, like using our founders' words, leaving out what they said, and self-valued roles. Otherwise, that body is sensed through our own, leaving out what they communicated about that, declassified about, and with the breaching method that we could observe, was in place, communicates about that, and what nature itself does. In other words, but the breaching method is a subject in the communications of our founders, just as the Constitution unabridged is. But this is also about how it is slash hyper abridged, so to speak. In other words, and there is a singular use of roles with that as uses of it, self value. It's manifest that way. That's why I'm referring to it. Not to say, oh, they now change. I'm trying to focus on actual predicate acts and predicate acts methods. Forgiveness is because even all sides individually grouped together as countries' names and the ones in them. There's worse involved. It's not just the international company. No, there is maintenance to this worse than stupid, tactically delusions raw. Speaking and having spoken for what witch trials are about, were about, for what slavery was about. Leave out with witch trials about simultaneously. There's a witch trial place in Weathersfield, Connecticut, right next to what used to be called Webb House. Now it's called the Webb Stevens House or the Webb Stevens Museum. And there are people next to there who have roles with who have roles with home break-ins and conversations that with people that live there next to there, as the people who have roles with the home break-ins, with like a whole bunch of people tied to the name Demora, and and with judges and prosecutors associated with a subby Pageria. They have something to do with all sides of Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, and their conjunctions to the state judicial branch offices and the Weathersfield Community Center and town offices involved putting predicate acts with facts, and their educators are also involved. I never had a class with Subby Bajario. He has federal evidence his crimes on the sides of the high school through time, with others involved also with fake putting fake things in databases with medical families and social family, like the all the and coaches. They're putting people in fake and having people repeat fake things and locking people to roles with predicate acts and with predicate acts with methods, which is relative to their uses of it. And relative to discern this, we have to be able to appreciate how we have black people's white survive in this being and having been replaced, where it is an irreplaceable part of subjects and answers and questions. And we can observe where and how it has stayed, what nature asks us, and what nature answers us. So easily, denied when where and how replaced. Our founders' communications are replaced. Uses of words like research. This breaching method already showed the law identities and the people tied to them. They need to hide how they used words like research, what was really involved with those instances and the locations at the time. There are a whole bunch of distinct natures of organized crime manifested in each location, where how they are fact treatment nature, predicate acts with facts rolls with it. I'm not even a lawyer. I'm not a police force. I'm not a criminal. I'm not a judge. They have failed to explain what witch trials are about simultaneously with science, with slavery, because of the breaching method. Forgiveness is not to leave out. And forgiveness is also because nature shows us to discern the breaching method. We have to look at these spots where everyone's criminal together, like the overt criminal, even encounters without realizing, not wanting to be, not realizing, like when Palestine's trying to defend themselves syntactically. And they say extremists, other extremists. That's syntax involved with all kind of wire and mail crime methods, all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes with the intelligence family, like at Hartford Hospital. It's with people also at the state corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices involved with the 80 Carriage Hill Drive with the name Kalal, but there's also a Phil Kalal. So Weathersfield police weren't clear when they said the name Coloro. And a Bob Chase with Whiting Forensics said the name Phil Coloro. And he's one of the ones involved with a Joshua Julian, who said he was involved on the south side of my house with federal evidences, crimes, and predicate acts. He demonstrated it was true as a confirmation per confessions of people with the name Violet, also tied to a girl who was reportedly dragged to her death from the side of Hartford Hospital and left off at one of those spots at the three at Jordan Lane and Ridge Road at the corner, at the southeast corner of Goodwin Park, which is right across the street from Goodwin Park. The front entrance of it is right across the street from the front entrance to where J.P. Morgan is buried. He had to loan money to the American government to fight in world wars. But our side and the German side, they didn't have possession of their names. Russians were already here. They didn't have possession of their name here or there. That's why America and Russia, the suburbs look like they do. There are still suburbs standing. There's still homes standing that were built before America's founders were born, relative to that slavery against themselves. We were supposed to teach about the torture method and the extortion method against our founders. And we were supposed to begin by being honest too about the extortion of George Washington. And James Madison was our founder before George Washington agreed to help them and use that plan and force the other founders to be. And then everyone to put fake motivations because they would have been sent fake narratives. In other words, because there were laws, there were internationally monitored conversations, northern colonies and southern colonies, that had distinctly slavery entrenched. For example, and what is relative further hyper additionally simultaneously, like with the witch trial place right next to Webb House, now called the Webb Stevens House. And then I believe they put the museum in there. And in other words, see those and the motivations for that and the narratives behind it is also being used to screen. Like there are extraterritorial influences and hyper extraterritorial influences. These are also there people involved with the like Valley Crest in Weathersfield. These are also people involved with predicate acts with Old Weathersfield. John DeMar was also involved with this. And I don't know all their names. There's a Finelli family that confirmed, demonstrated. I don't know their educators' roles with this. They have roles with the intelligence community, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw. At the same time, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and people involved, everyone speaking through others fake. All exception nature, they're using them criminally foreign influence too. Tactically delusions, raw. Has something to do with the roles all along Walker Hill too. In other words, please don't make me beg to get them on paper. A whole bunch of people from the Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts have roles like with Eric Burgess. He confessed that and then he told lies to one of the girls who works at Hartford Court. Apparently, I don't know what her role is with Hartford courts, a Hartford Superior Court. But they're also federal. There's also Connecticut's District Court and the Britain Superior Court and the FBI Director Robert Luskin before the World Trade Center attack. They're involved with ongoing confessions that were also in that court of an Emily or Amy. She's also involved with courts themselves switching and forging names and sequences. These are also people with a Dean Judd and a Dean Alford, also with a Joshua Julian and a Joshua Stryker, and a whole bunch of people tied to them, and also people with the name Oliveri have been planting evidences on off the state judicial branch offices with the people involved, and all along Route 3. And he sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm he has roles with predicate acts with the corner of Elm Street, the corner of Elm Streets and Route 3 in Wethersfield and Rocky Hill through time with a whole bunch of people and the Wethersfield police. It's from years before Mazzucato Bakery was put there. And he's reportedly married. Reno Mazzucato is reportedly married to a Jessica Cintron, who's one of the names that was brought up by the people with the confessions with the police switching and forging names. And their recorded roles with first forcing a principal child abuser and more child abusers through the years, there were time use / estimate roles, collusions with them with that. They have digital crimes further, and they've been planting fake evidences with WFSB not far from there, and with Fox Connecticut News, as people also at Fox Connecticut News names, and names all along Wethersfield Avenue and Wethersfield and Franklin Avenue and Berlin Turnpike before the heart of Hartford. They have roles criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought with Wethersfield police chiefs with the same house / S and a whole bunch of people from other areas who came in to make it look like we were tied, fake natures of ties. Fred Grisey is one of the ones involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, identity thefts and frauds with people at Hartford Hospital named Apted. Jody Pierce, also the family members of fire departments with the intelligence families run into high life aggressions. This is as victims / hyper victims, but they want and need to be pretend this is calling them predators where they are predators. But in other words, because everyone's attaching everyone to fake and changed communications with themselves. And they want to debate it or see what's said because, in other words, all these bad things happen and everything. Everyone wants things on paper properly. See, but they can't get on paper properly. They've been doing it on a mass scale. They already recorded themselves all kind of predicate acts with facts, methods, and collusions at all natures of crime scenes. Until it was so long, they got away with it. They show how to get away with it. The breaching method shows them how to treat subjects like what witch trials are about. You don't leave what slavery was about separated from what witch trials are about, and you don't leave what witch trials are about separated from what slavery was about, and you leave neither of them. You don't leave anything out from the Native American what it's about. It's the stand against them. If you do it honestly, it's going to show the A through Z had already been taken from our words, hyper native pure. Everyone was forced to fight with each other syntactically, how to adapt to that and the breaching method at the same time. Everyone did it wrong. All evolutions, fruits, and gifts are coming with demonstrations of the same thing. They're causing more impositions upon ourselves. In other words, black pupils, because we are quality as fact should be nature. Many ways, where it counts. We're more importantly than where we are physically. In fact, in other words, this is played by the breaching method. See, suits and ties count as the exceptions. You leave out how the suburbs were designed before cars, before our American founders were born. They already may have the Native Americans, their food sources, tactically denatured. Let alone the colonists with the mowing the lawns, making it worse each year. So, they're reliant too upon systems that are for a breaching method. No one wants to have, if you're Native American or a regular citizen, you don't want to have water. You have to get water in a bottle. In other words, when we had means to have just free, a huge, perfect, cleans everything, disinfected, put your water. People need water, especially because you have everything tactically denatured. But we're not going to leave it like that. But the only way we can fix it is realizing, as a human species body plan. In other words, every individual leader is being forced to communicate while being forced to entertain how the locations, areas, and states communicate, they can't defend that and afford not to self-value. The real collusion slash X were the real worst uses of the worst criminal insidiousness or worst criminal foreign influences at all locations slash S, because it is manifest as criminal foreign influences slash hyper criminal foreign influences. And where it is manifested is counted wrong, though. Also relative to the subject treatment's containment method. 6666 schools at A through Z. Here, Anthony. So the World Trade Center has security problems with WFSB, Connecticut's Chancellor, and there's a I believe it's a Jay Salvatore. He's reportedly with the Marines. And I don't know who said that to me. They times when I walked by years ago. And then I saw him standing, on my street one time. And one time my Saudi friend wanted me to talk to me at a booth at Central Connecticut State University. And these had people roles with a whole bunch of different police forms and people with the World Trade Center attack, foreign and domestic, with those same ones, with their uses of their differences to screen their roles, criminally foreign influences that were kids, through their roles with the people that raised them, criminally abused for this. A Christopher Walters is one of the people recorded. I only know him seeking me out to plant evidences with a police chief Cintron and 1 years ago, involved with a whole bunch of people with medical corruption with him also, and people tied to him, named Lombardo. Please get them on paper, one name in sequence with the rest of the. I want a response to the principal child abuser's confessions and faking and changing my behavior. Too, in databases, they do this game with the kids, and then as adults, a whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living have intercities roles between the campuses, intercity and intracity. And then the same thing with intercities and intracities. It's manifest that way. The breaching method shows everyone, where it counts. This wouldn't be if you guys would not change people's words. I mentioned, in other words, the agencies recorded themselves with the courts too, on a mass scale, needing to change people's short words, fake them, whole conversations. So the branch of the government individually grouped them together. They've been involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, but it is at the exact same time with other countries, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, but it is in terrorists with the syntax too. These are predicate acts with facts. These are predicate acts with criminal insidious nature itself use is recorded. And motivation screening. They're lying about why they're changing and faking what I say, collusions, the news locations. They're lying about what they think about me. They're using all exceptions to pretend other. That's why please help. I know it, in other words, because it's already recorded now. It's like better than radar. Inside, and the difference between the intelligence at Fox Connecticut News are next to them, at WFSB are next to them, at Fox Connecticut News, WTNH next to them, and the Ways next to them. Excuse me. For example, the FBI is next to them. A former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, Thaddeus Skabowski, a Dominic Lepriata, and a Robert and John LeConge. They have collusions with people all along Hangdog Lane and Two Route Highway, with identity and conjunctions to it, with putting predicate acts with facts and databases at all ages and natures of campuses, including fire and medical. And they have Russians tying collusions with them, not legitimate roles, with a Peruta family involved with predicate acts at corners of streets per other kids that put them in fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. And then it's nothing personal against them either. All exceptions, exception nature, if they exist, they would be and had been already recorded using them criminally for an influence. Hartford Hospital has a male and female intelligence with the corner of Griswold Street and Route 3 with like a nurse, I believe, involved with them with torture before the World Trade Center attack, identity theft, fraud, slanders, with judges and prosecutors personally and professionally involved, with a whole bunch of people there, with the ones I caught with the child abuser principal. There's no, and it's campus, and everyone's won't get on paper and they're not honest about wanting privacy because they brought this up. I'm the one who wanted privacy. You guys won't communicate with me. You already attached me to fake and changed communications with the police that were planting evidences and collusions and delusions, little fake punks. And then they take away all my emails with the Hotmail. Now they're leaking. They have a whole bunch of things with. Then he makes more things happen. All kinds of things next to the campuses into cities with the ones increasingly planting evidence on my street in Wethersfield. And they did it where I lived at other places too. And they're the same ones involved with people next to each of the campuses I went to. There's even the name Mendez next to a Montessori school I went to for a year in West Hartford. Involved also with a Sioka, a Christina Sioka. These are people involved with mail with wire crimes, people with the intelligence with Miami, involved with the name Scalora, people involved with the World Trade Center attack with the name Scalora in Manhattan too, as ones involved with former director of the FBI Robert Luskin, and their cousins are Colosso, so that's he's their cousin, and has something they lied to themselves and others with the name Mackenzie. Kate McKenzie, and people with whiting forensics have roles with foreign and domestic navy, with all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes, all kinds of evidences crimes, and delusions relative, and collusions with patients and criminals of theirs before they were caught at the crime scenes, and with names next to it, and their roles with those people there, torturing them to keep their mouth shut and keep them a quality of fact human nature not that is not capable or allowed to show what's actually going on at our location /S. So Mike Roberts, a Daryl Chandler. I don't know he apparently has a sister. I don't even know her name. I don't know he has educators. I never had a class with a Daryl Chandler. Try to make fake exceptions of no meaning. At both times, he's involved increasingly with people with the World Trade Center attack, with the intelligence community, his roles with people from Korea, and people with next to where the Wethersfield Police Department is now, since before it was there. But he has roles with the Robert Rodriguez shopping center of where on the border. Probably nothing is the place, but that Robert Rodriguez has rules for some untimely deaths with people at Trinity College. A whole bunch of people at Trinity College got involved on my street in Wethersfield with untimely death at Hartford Hospital. At Hartford Hospital, people too were roles with it, with an untimely death at Trinity College, and with various natures of organized crime next to it through time, and people who are Los Salidos themed, also with the phones and with the digital, as the ones on my street involved with them, with the Wethersfield Police forging and switching names with them, and planting evidences at and next to campuses, even with the security of the schools further involved with these rackets. These are not legitimate roles they have at each age of fact-checking nature. They're even in other words, it's not just because they have both sides of people actually questioning them. They're just changing and faking what's actually recorded. and putting delusions. Those delusions, then they pretend it's personal, and when we know they have delusions, they're forging and switching names. Please, Judge Napolitano. Please, Saudi Arabia. Please, Christine Amanpour. Get the Connecticut interbranch on paper, one name in sequence. I want a response for the principal child abuser's confessions and these police confessions about the switching and forging names and collusions with the retired Weathersfield police chiefs. I want them on paper. Why is he hiding behind the Mazzucato Bakery? What have they been doing with all these people with that corner since years before the Mazzucato Bakery was there? See, they've been using the right to lie where they don't have the right to lie, and about other people in ways they don't too. These are people involved with intercultural and intracultural identity theft, fraud, slanders, where there are functions by that. They have collusions with the World Trade Center attack, with people with all the different countries involved too. Black pupils, please. WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News. Please fix the fake conversations with me and report that to the parents. There are more medical and sexual offenders of the kids recorded you had collusions with then and now. There's a Dr. Laura Saunders who is also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with you. I never met her in my life. She's one of a whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital, also with a Leahy family, put fake conversations with me, and they've been forging names apparently of a Dr. Shamsi Ali too. In other words, I can't get one person on paper since before the World Trade Center attack. When the FBI in courts, a former FBI director Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, and their family members, and a whole bunch of people from Weathersfield were colluding at West Hartford locations. Joseph Dennis said it was at a park next to West Farms Mall. That also brought up that was also common to the confessions of Eric Burgess and requests for help. And then he brought the Dean Judd and his kid involved with it. But those locations and the campuses have been involved since I was a kid with the names involved with the child abusers in Weathersfield. There is a Lucinda Alderuccio, I believe is her name. And or Lucinda Klavinskis. I never met her, but she's one of the ones involved with like some police forms that used to live on my street, and I wasn't in a class with them in grammar school, but they're putting fake things with their teachers in databases, and with a former mayor Gold and other people tied to other mayors who have roles further with criminal enterprises and next to the state education department, where and how worse than criminal incompetence has been treating subjects like education, black pupils. Please let me show you how to read books in sequence, the value of sequence. For example, the beginning of the Old Testament says only defend right here, and no one even knows that. It says only defend right here, and the part that comes before it, where the names of the people of science will come together. And the part that comes before that, and the beginning of the beginning of the Quran too, it says all that matters is if someone's honest about the identity of all space/existence, about their use of it. It doesn't say all that, and it says, in fact, don't pray in a mosque for the slightest reason if you don't, in other words, if you see reason natural. It doesn't say all that matters is if you wear a burqa or not. See, this preaching method knew the difference between people defending the religions or countering them and the exceptions with self-value collusions with each other with factual nature, quality aspects, and nature of demonstrations of their roles with the breaching method. That it also knew that it could use to show them that you need to hide that from everyone else. And then they could show everyone else they need to hide that for other reasons, hyperaditional that it gives them. The proverbial devil, the proverbial shaitan. More practically, more probably, a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise being demonstrated to us by nature itself. Black pupils. The predicate is value to the identity the scientists share, simultaneously while it values the predicate act of the law. The same identity that has functional, how it is hyper invisible but still discernible distinctly from how it is invisible but still discernible. So please, WFSB, fix the World Trade Center predicate act. Make conversations with me about it because you have collusions with people before that involved with you, involved with it too, interstates and internationally. People with the name Demoro and Scalora and Cololo said they are cousins. Cololo and Demoro said they are cousins with the Scalora. Also, as one of the ones involved with Wethersfield Police or some other police that's switching and forging names. He gave me a card. I remember forced himself through my door, made a threat to me, also as a confession, and then pretend I had communications with him. Let's get that guy's name too. These are the police department communicated that the police chiefs and the police departments with the same house is criminally involved with them too, personally and professionally, and their family members and intimate ties. The same house with intimate ties to an old police chief too, involved with this Phil Cololo, even if he's not there, and they have violence involved. And so you can't call the police because they already attached me to fake conversations with them as a kid and as an adult. And they already put falsified police reports. They put police reports on a mass scale. There are proofs with charges but no writing because of the roles of their collusions at all natures of crime scenes and with all natures of rackets by, with exceptions like where everyone talks stupid or misspeaks. Always but Greek. Thank you. Get them on paper. Let's go in order. Then I'll show you the rest. Once they get on paper, one name and sequence. Who disbelieves?